Good afternoon. This is Elizabeth Neuman, Content Management Librarian with the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. And this presentation is on how we are integrating metadata into our WiseLearn project. This presentation was first given at the Education Metadata meeting on July 30th in DC. This is a nice quote from the New York Times Innovation Report on how important metadata is in many different applications. So this presentation will cover the definition, goals, and collaborators of WiseLearn, the content that we plan on including, the setup and output of the content in regards to the metadata, and the challenges that we have been coming across. So WiseLearn is our statewide digital learning portal, and it is meant for all Wisconsin school districts to use. It is a cost-efficient and equitable access point to high-quality vetted educational tools, content, training, and technological expertise. We do plan on reaching all K-12 educators through this site, including choice and homeschool programs, and hopefully in the future plan to expand this to the PK-20 field. We are building the site in Drupal currently, and we do plan on having the site architecture finalized in the next 6 months, with content coming 6 to 18 months thereafter. Now, this project would not be possible without our many in-state and out-of-state collaborators. In-state, we're working within DPI itself amongst many teams to get this project rolling. We have collaborated with the CESAs, which are the cooperative educational service agencies around the state, many of our K-12 districts, and the Wisconsin Digital Learning Collaborative. Out of state, we've contacted many state education agencies and worked with these states that are building very similar educator portals to come across similar difficulties and come to a conclusion and a consensus on specific guidelines and best practices. The content itself that we are including in WiseLearn will be quite a few different things. First of all, we will be selecting pieces from BadgerLink, which is the state's online library. And so this is licensed content available to anyone in the state, including education pieces and general public pieces. We will also be including OER and other digital content, purchase content, and e-textbooks and modular pieces. In order for all of these different items to work together within the portal, we have decided upon using the schema.org with the LRMI extension for our metadata. So this essentially means that everybody will be describing their pieces in the same consistent manner within the site using these education-specific fields. So users, when they're going through our site, they are able to find the right content at the right time. We've also decided to add additional homegrown fields to the schema that would apply to specific Wisconsin needs. We first learned about the LRMI metadata through participation in the Achieve OER Institute. And this began a couple years ago. It is a collaboration between some states and Achieve on how to best bring in OER resources into these state projects. Working with this project, we first learned about LRMI, and we decided this sounded like a great option for how to describe our resource well. And so we decided upon the schema a couple years ago. We have also looked at quite a few websites, including OER Commons, the Illinois repository site, and quite a few other state sites and content provider sites to see how their resources are being described and choose amongst the best of them and hopefully build our site so the resources are very easy to find. We also participate in the LRMI and Learning Registry Google groups, and so these groups have helped us learn of new updates regarding the schema. We've learned about how best to incorporate the Learning Registry into our project, and we've also been able to connect with a lot of outside groups that are in the middle of these same sort of projects. And finally, there's the Common Content Tagging Initiative that was actually done with some other states, but we've been lucky enough to collaborate with them now, and so we're all working together on ensuring that these participating states are using the same sort of metadata schema to describe their educational resources. And outside of just the description portion, because we're using Drupal, we actually have implemented the schema.org module within the site, and so that allows for automatic markup of our fields with the output of RDFA. So that is our structured data syntax that we are using currently on the site. So for output itself, because of how we are using schema.org and LRMI internally and the way that we are describing our resources, we feel that this is a really neat way to build the site so the internal browse and search functions will work out really well. And so educators using the site will be able to find, again, the right content that they need at the right time. And externally, because we are using the structured data syntax, the RDFA, when this is all set up and finalized, users going through popular web searches such as Google, they would be able to search for, let's say, a lesson plan and then filter by the LRMI fields in order to find the right content. And lastly, for output, we're looking at how we can collaborate with other states that are building similar portals using the Learning Registry to be sharing these resources back and forth, so then we can build the best repository that we can. And like many other states and other projects, we are coming across some challenges building the portal, and these are just some of them that we have been coming across. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that we're working with the correct stakeholders and meeting everybody's needs. And so part of this is making sure also that we have open communication and that we are sharing the right information back and forth and that the right questions are being asked. Vocabularies, there are many different metadata schemas that you can pick from. LRMI and schema.org, just one of them, but there's also Dublin Core, which has been around for quite some time, IEEE LOM as well, and we came across a challenge of deciding which metadata schema should we use for our site, and it came down to that the schema.org and LRMI was the best option for our needs. And so building off of that, the properties themselves, even though schema.org and LRMI do have quite a few properties that do a very good job at describing educational resources, we did feel like we needed to add on a couple of our own homegrown fields. And so that does include adding on grade level fields so we can describe the grade, and describing also that resources, the BadgerLink resources in particular, that those are only available within the state of Wisconsin since they are licensed content. And we know that this isn't necessarily a schema.org LRMI issue, that this would likely need to happen even if we had chosen one of the other vocabularies. Another one of the major challenges is making sure that we stay abreast of modifications. And so this has been really important to participate in those Google groups, because then we hear about new fields that might be added into schema.org, for example, the license field. And so we knew of that, and we were able to update our site to reflect those changes. And then we also are able to hear about the discussions going on recommended properties and values for all the fields. And so really it's, again, this collaborative work amongst all of these different partners that makes sure that we have the most up-to-date information and make the site the best that we can. As for standards, this is in reference to educational standards and how to best use the alignment object fields in particular, and learning how to use those properly. And then also opening up the discussion on how to incorporate the achievement standards network into this portion of our description. And lastly, we have come across quite a few learning curves, in particular learning about the structured data syntaxes and which one to choose. There's a lot of questions over, do you do RDFA or do you do microdata? And with our Drupal site, the RDFA was in place, and so that's what we are going with. Although we are well aware that there is a little bit of a hiccup between Drupal and RDFA, so we're hoping that a resolution is in place soon, so then our structured data syntax will actually work properly. We also have come across some learning curves with the Learning Registry. And again, this all comes back to working with other states and working with participating in the Google group and learning about exactly how does this work in these large systems. And finally, just overall maintenance of the site. That's always an ongoing challenge, and making sure that internally the site can be sustainable for years to come. But overall, these challenges aside, we're really excited about getting our educator portal up and running and about using the schema.org and LRMI metadata scheme to make sure that our educators can find the right resources at the right time. And here's my contact information. Again, Elizabeth Neuman. I can be reached either through email or phone at the information listed. Thank you so much.